You ready? Mm-hmm. All right. Shit. Hey y'all, it's Jeremy Stanfill. You're in Memphis, Tennessee. It's a song about these old boots I'm wearing called My Shoes. Hey, let me tell a little story I know. I'm just a man hanging on by a thread. I need a rope in this war I'm fighting, trying to survive. You want a drink? I said no, and here's why. I already drank the Mississippi dry. I burned down that bridge, barely made it out alive. And somewhere along the way, all my sins, they caught up with me. Now I'm trying to be a better man. Hope that you can understand. Walk a mile in my shoes. Found my bottom in an old rocking chair in front of a fancy rehab in the middle of nowhere, with no one to blame but myself this time. December rolled around and my mom got sick in that hospital room a day I'll never forget. I just hung my head and said my last goodbye. Now I'm singing to her. And somewhere along the way, all my sins, they caught up with me. Now I'm trying to be a better man. Hope that you can understand. Walk a mile in my shoes. Better believe I bought these things brand new. Whoa, 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 yeah. Yes, it's true, and I earned every scratch on it, baby. Whoa, you think you know, well you don't. Yeah. Play with fire, you're bound to get burned. Now I got a scar, a lesson learned. But sometimes you lose, well sometimes you lose. Well, this life just ain't been fair. Living lost and unprepared, wandering down the road, trying to get home to you. And somewhere along the way, all my sins, they caught up with me. Now I'm trying to be a better man. Hope that you can understand. Walk a mile in my shoes. Hope that you can understand. Walk a mile in my shoes. I don't think you would understand unless you walked a mile in my shoes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, my shoes.
Well, hey, brother, that's a perfect place to start. Just, I like the transparency of it. Put a little bit of your life story in there as you went. We'll dig into some of those in greater detail, but just to break down some of those verses and where that song come from, man. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, man. That kind of about sums it up, you know. Just to never judge a book by its cover. I feel like, you know, I've definitely felt very misunderstood and last long while, you know, and that's pretty much what I'm talking about. Just, you know, I would like to. It's just kind of like, you know, your mistakes don't sum you up as a person. That's basically what that song is about.
It doesn't define you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of times in my life, it can, you know, it's kind of a hard trail for me to walk. Like I was saying earlier, sometimes I'm the kind of a guy that people see me coming and they cross the street just because of what they
think they've heard or know about me, but it's not true, you know.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it's about. It's about alcohol and losing someone you love and having life come at you pretty fast and in a real way.
Yeah. Brother, let's start. Born and raised in Memphis.
Born and raised.
So let's go to the early childhood years, and how did music come into your life? And when did, I guess it would be that crack in the door, and you peered up in there and be like, yeah, I gotta get my hands on a guitar, and I gotta do this thing. I gotta try this out.
Man, it's kind of hard to say because music's kind of always been in my life, my whole life. It feels like I remember being a little kid and just, you know, there was my dad's a drummer, you know, and I mean, I always woke up and it just seemed like there was always just a drum kit piled in the corner or something like that, or we were always going to watch my dad play. So
Yeah.
to me, when I met other little kids in the neighborhood and they didn't know what an instrument was or how to play it, like I thought there was something strange. Like, what do you mean you don't have a
It's the
piano at your
norm.
house? Yeah. So that was kind of it, man. Pretty much from the time I can remember. I mean, I've been, you know, I was that kid that was beating around on pots and pans and stuff like that from an early age. And when my dad saw the interest, he basically had the drum set up and let me go at it when I was big enough to reach the pedals, you know.
Yeah. So you started out on the drums.
Started on drums, yeah.
When did you make your transition to other instruments?
Pretty much when I get my hands, you know, once I discovered the drums, I mean, and then I fell in love with the piano, and that was probably, I don't know, eight years old or so, and then my parents had an old guitar they bought at the junk stores. My mom was always going to, you know, junk stores and things like that, and they bought this old electric guitar that there was in an old PV case that had the amp built into it, and yeah, so I guess I was sticking around with stuff like that when I was probably about 8 years old.
Wow. So at that age, man, besides the influence of your father, who were some of the bands that you were listening to and try to replicate?
You know, I loved like surf music for some reason. You know, when I was a kid, because my dad, you know, they're playing all this 50s and 60s stuff, and you know, we started our first band. It was like me and my two cousins, like my best friend, and we started this instrumental band called the Mysterious Comics, and we were out playing around Memphis at the Shell and stuff when we were like 8, 9 years old.
Wow.
And but we didn't know. I mean, we were basically just like playing with our dads were like, you should learn Booker T and the MGs, you should learn this and learn that, and so we were doing all these instrumental songs like that. So one half of the set would be something like Booker T and the MGs, and then I'd want to do stuff like Wipeout, Pipeline, because you know the surf stuff. And so that was the biggest influence for me early on, was like stuff like my mom was really into like Otis Redding and Fats Domino and the Supremes, and my dad was always preaching the Beatles and Led Zeppelin and that kind of stuff. And then I had my two older brothers that were like, you know, 10 years older than me, riding around in old hot rod Mustangs, priming out with like, you know, mullets and the side of the head shaved, you know, basically like the Lost Boys listening to Iron Maiden or the Fat Boys, you know. So
Yeah.
I'm getting it from all kinds of,
Yeah.
you know.
A lot of influence.
Yeah.
And so moving on through, as you were just coming up through middle and high school, how long did the instrumental band hang around before you started breaking off into a different path?
Well, we were doing that, man. So, you know, we kind of just grew up we grew up in Raleigh, this neighborhood. The only music we had access to was MTV, the radio station, or my dad.
Yeah.
And, or whatever my brothers were bringing to us. So we were kids at that time. So, I mean, I was playing music because that's all I wanted to do, and I loved it. But I was also like, just wanted to be a kid and go outside and play and ride bikes and all that stuff. So I was also really big into BMX bike riding at that time.
Oh.
So I was pretty passionate about that, and so we were trying to juggle the band thing, but we were little kids, so everybody's like doing their own, you know, playing baseball and just whatever, and then we did that for a little while, and I guess around 12 or so, I was like interested in racing bikes and all that stuff, and then
Ever do any sweet jumps?
yeah, I mean, that's why I'm so ugly, man. I got so many broken bones and scars all up from doing sweet jumps. Hey, man, let's just jump off this house real quick, you know? Or at least I was the one. All my friends were like, yeah, man, we'll watch. And I'd come home with two, like, broken arms, you know? But I guess around 14 is when we made that transition from you know, just being like a little baby band, like little kids doing what our dad told us to do, sort of thing. To, you know, we decided we wanted to really try to be a band.
So what did that look like? What kind of style of music were y'all playing?
That was about 14 or so, because I remember, you know, I was still going to this one school, and my buddy like started going to this other school, and you know, he had discovered Nirvana and all those kind of bands. So we went to the pawn shop, and his dad bought him a Stratocaster. He grew his hair out long, and he was learning every Nirvana song and every Metallica song there was. And I still had my drum kit, and it was just two of us. And then like you know, so we were basically just trying to emulate all those bands, and then we decided to that we wanted to start writing our own songs.
Yeah.
So it kind of was like, that's what it sounded like. It sounded like Nirvana, Silverchair, but it quickly went into like, you know, we were like, we loved punk rock and all that stuff. So we were kind of like this mix between like, I don't know, we were just like we were just wild little kids, man. We were just kind of just a bunch of mutts.
You know, the more I get to sit down and talk with musicians, and it almost seems that it doesn't matter what genre or style they were into. It seems like Kurt Cobain and Nirvana just had some kind of an impact.
Sure, especially in this age group, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it was right off the jump. We were gone. Like once I discovered music, and that's who I was and what I was good at, and I felt like I had a place with it. I was off and running, never looked back. So there was nothing ever, you know, school and girls and pretty much anything. I committed my whole life to music, and that was it.
So as you were getting older and getting out of high school, fairly getting gigs, and what did all that look like as far as the band at that time?
Well, it kind of seemed like we started the band when we were, you know, like I said, when we were like 14 or so, and it was just like every day. I mean, you know, me and my best friend Marty started, and then we recruited this guy named James Godwin, and then it was just every day, practice. We were in my mom's living room or in somebody's garage, and it was just building it up. And pretty much from middle school on, we were already playing shows and trying to build it up, and it just kind of we did that for 15 years, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. The next thing we know, you know, we were like the biggest band around Memphis, you know, and we had all these things like happening for us as far as like, you know, we were playing these big shows, we were selling out shows, you know, thought we were headed somewhere. We thought we were going to take over the world together, you know.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, we're in California showcasing for record labels and making all these plans, and all of our dreams are coming true. And then it didn't happen, you know. And then we grew up, and reality set in and all that stuff.
So during that time, just not only California, were y'all touring kind of all over the states wherever you could play?
Well, we were young, man. We were just playing around town. It was like, you know, there was this club downtown called the New Daisy. And it's like, and if you made it to the New Daisy, that was like, you know, that was our goal. You know, we made it. You know, it's like, oh God, you know, we're playing the Daisy. You know, we were just playing like house parties and like anywhere we could play, people's garages, you know. So, and once we got to that point, it's like they finally let us in the Daisy. The next thing we know, they got us opening up for bands. And next thing you know, we're headlining and we're selling out the Daisy, you know. And that's kind of where it started. And then that band, we did a little bit of touring, and not a whole lot of. I didn't do a whole lot of touring. All we did was practice all the time, and you know, and then we played live a lot in Memphis, but the touring thing just didn't happen, and I think that's probably why we never made it, because we never made that commitment to actually go on the road. You know, we bought the van and trailer, and we did it a little bit, but I didn't actually start touring until I joined Star and Micey, and I went solo and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So let's go through that time period. When you went solo and during that Star and Micey period, I think Josh was saying that you impacted him heavily with those singer-songwriter nights, with those open mics.
Right.
And that, you know, I think the girl he was dating at the time said she was working the bar and she knew you. And I don't think y'all knew each other yet.
Well, I knew his older sister and brother from school. And and Josh, even though he's only just a few years younger than me, he seemed like a little kid. I didn't really know I didn't know him. You know, I just knew his sister and brother, mainly his sister. And they were around when we were in those bands I was talking about playing, and I would see Josh around, like, you know, around sometimes, and I guess during the time when I was playing at the Daisy with that band, and we were a fairly popular band in town, him and all his buddies would come out to all of our shows, and like they knew every word, and like, you know, Josh is super sweet and enthusiastic and stuff, and I knew who he was because he was Bonnie's little brother, so I already had a kind of a spot for him.
Yeah.
And I'd see him out there, and he'd always come up and just, you know, tell me how much, like, he really liked these songs, which meant a lot to me because, you know, I mean, because I was putting everything into these songs, and for him to tell me the things he was saying, and he claims that, you know, I remember the night. I mean, I saw him out in the crowd, and it's a big, you know, sold out crowd, and my voice was shocked because we'd been playing so much, and I was like, hey man. You know, I pulled him on stage, and he got on stage and sang the songs with me, and he claims that that's one of the reasons why he started doing what he's doing. You know,
that's what he said on the show,
and that
was one of the impacts on him.
I think a little bit, Vivian a little bit on that. He's too good to be lying like that. But yeah, that was it, man. And then that's kind of how that started. And like, you know, and I didn't see Josh for a long time. I just, you know, I knew Josh because of him and Jeff, you know, the bass player for Star and Micey. I see him around. They'd always come. They were always super supportive and cool. And years later, after the band had been on, we had been through many, you know, some band name changes and had signed a couple record deals. And we were kind of had run our course, like, you know, been a band for 15 or so years and been through the ringer with, you know, I was like done with it, you know, I was like over it, had my heart broken, and they were just starting.
Yeah.
And I had already been through it, you know, and yeah, and around that time there was a bar called Neil's that burned down, just a little dive bar, famous dive bar in Midtown, and the sound guy, he called me up because he knew me from, you know, just being little, like my dad playing there and stuff, and just running around the bar, and he's like, man, I hear you, you know, I know you write songs. He's like, I'm trying to get together this songwriter night. Would you be interested in hosting it? Mm-hmm. I was like, yeah, man. You know, because at that time I had no, you know, I didn't really know what I was going to do. I just had been in a band my whole life. You know, I had no aspirations of being like a solo artist or anything like that.
Came at a good time, right?
Yeah, so I started doing this songwriter night, just kind of like, because, you know, the songs I was writing were going more in the direction like the song that I just played for you, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I was kind of outgrowing what I was doing, and it was a good opportunity for me to just to kind of practice and work that out. And I met all these other guys that were doing the same thing, and Nick Redman was one of them, which is the other singer for Star and Micey, and he became one of me and him were basically hosting the thing, and all these like slew of great artists kind of that came through and played, and Josh was one of them. And Josh kind of showed up at the gig one night, and then that's basically where Star and Micey was formed from that.
Yeah.
That night at Bar Stars at Neil's, and they started playing music together from that, and I was still doing my thing solo, but we were all friends and hanging out, and then Star and Micey had formed, and I was still kind of just Jeremy Stanfill or whatever, and then they knew I was kind of going through some stuff, like a hard time, and they're like, hey man, why don't you just come on the road with us?
Was that along the alcohol time?
Yeah, the alcohol had started by that point, you know. Because I didn't really drink, man. I was never, like, heavy on drugs or smoking cigarettes or drinking or anything. I did all the, you know, normal partying and stuff that teenagers do. But, like, if anything, I was that kid that got, you know, people gave me a hard time because I didn't do all that. You know, it certainly wasn't, like, no one expected me to be the one that, like, was going to rehab and all that stuff, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, I mean, just at that point, I was in my late 20s. My band had fallen apart. I didn't know what I was doing. Just, you know, started just to, you know, discover the way whiskey made me not feel anything. And then, so that's kind of what happened, yeah, around that time.
I got you. And I guess I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the Memphis music scene. It sounds like, I don't know if it's like this for every artist in the music community as a whole, but it seems like a pretty tight knit group.
Yeah, man.
Fairly supportive of what each other is trying to do rather than cutting heads.
Definitely, man. Memphis is such a great place for that. You know what I mean? It's competitive like anywhere else because we're all artists and all that stuff. But there's so many great artists, and a lot of us have all been playing together in some form or fashion, whether it's at a singer-songwriter night or in a band or whatever forever. And I think for the most part, everybody's super supportive of each other.
Yeah. I got oh gosh, Mike Bibbs. Did you ever get a chance to meet him?
Yeah, I was playing drums on tour with the band. We just played with his band in Nashville.
Modern Convenience.
Yeah,
I had him on, and that was one thing we talked about because he's like, I never thought I'd move to Nashville.
Yeah,
because it's like Memphis, Nashville's got that thing, and he's like,
Right.
I got over here, and I didn't think it would work, but it was perfect.
yeah.
It was perfect for what I was trying to do at the time because I had done the Memphis scene. He said it was a chance to break out. So
Right.
That was interesting to talk the music scene of like.
And
Memphis.
you know what's so cool? Because I don't know Mike Bibbs really well, but I've known him for a long time, and he's pretty good friends with the guy, another band I play drums for, and I know him from working at a record store down the street. That's how we all knew each other, and they were just. I just knew him as like, hey, that's Bibbs. We're going to Bibbs' house and they're going to play video games and drink and eat and smoke weed and stuff. And I knew he played in garage rock bands, but we weren't even thinking about it. But it was just so funny to see Bibbs. I hadn't seen him in a long time playing, doing his thing in this little honky tonk bar straight up in Nashville, standing on the fucking tables like, just making people nervous. And he's so nice. But when he gets on stage, man, that guy is a monster.
Yeah, it's pumped.
It's great. I love it. I mean, I'm just like left there feeling like just excited,
Mm-hmm.
Glad you brought him up.
Yeah. Oh, Mike. We went up to me and Ryan went up to Nashville to work the Tomato Fest.
Yeah.
And we spent one of the nights. We stayed up there with Mike, and great hospitality. He's a good fellow.
Yeah, man.
So just moving on and just kind of back, just talking about Memphis. You started touring around with Star and Micey for a bit.
Yeah, I jumped in the van with them. Basically, they started touring. They bought like a little van and they were just doing like, Star and Micey started off the right way, super grassroots, and like they had been on a tour for a while or a week or something. They were coming back through Memphis and
grabbed you up.
Yeah, just grabbed me up. Basically, like, hey man, like I know you're not doing anything right now, like. You want to come on tour with us? And I'm like, yeah, man, let's do it.
Because at that time, they were still all playing a little piece of the drums by themselves, right?
Yeah, because they couldn't find a drummer that would stick. So they were doing the bass drum, like all that,
Yeah. So that had to change the game for them.
Yeah, and it was cool because, like, I don't think they really were aware of me as a drummer because I'd been a drummer for all these bands for like 10 years, and then I became the singer. So Josh only knew me. Yeah. They had only known me after the fact.
It's a front man.
Yeah, it's a front man when the band had already kind of went on to be stuff. So they were surprised when I was like, well, I'm a drummer, man,
Yeah.
But yeah, I toured with them for a long time. And not a super long time, for probably about a year. Because pretty much when I jumped in the band, I've been with them ever since. Whether I was in the band or not, I've been with them.
Yeah.
And I just jumped in the band. It was I'd open up the shows for them, and then it became like, hey man, you should get on stage and do a song with us. I'm like, all right, that's cool. And then like we started like sitting around the guitar in the band, and songs started happening. And we're like, hey man, you should play a show with us. Like we were actually playing the whole show with us. And they tried to get me to be the drummer for a long time, and I was like, maybe man, I'll do it when I can. They're like, come on man, just be our drummer, And so I'd go on tour with them for a little while, and then I wouldn't go on tour with them because I was still trying to like be somebody, Yeah. I don't know what I was thinking, but and then eventually they're just stuck with me.
Yeah. And so, have you been doing this the whole time, just recording at home and doing all that writing? When did that start? Right,
pretty early on. From when I was a kid, like
you had
right
to
off the
think
bat, I
about
was interested in like we wanted to write our own songs and started figuring it out like what we could do. And we had like one of those little tape recorders, that flip up.
Yeah.
So I had that, and like I don't even remember. I don't know if my dad or somebody taught me this trick where you have the tape recorder and you have a cassette tape and you put like masking or scotch tape over one end. You can record over, even if it's like a tape that already has stuff on it, right? So I had just a big box of tapes that I had stolen from my dad and my brothers, and I had this little thing, and I'd like me and my best friend would sit down, in front of it, hit record, and we'd sing harmony, and then we'd stick it, he had the old stereo with the glass thing, and so we'd take that tape and put it in here, and then take a new tape, put it in here, and then we push play, and then, hit record and sing along, and that's how we'd learn how to overdub,
Yeah.
And we'd have like these, 12-track recordings on these little, all you can hear is just, and I did that for a long time, and I'll show you, man, like, and then my parents saved up and bought me this 4-track when I was about, I don't know, 15 years old. And
Oh yeah.
let's go.
Yeah.
And I learned how to record. We started making records on that pretty much right off the jump. So I've been recording, doing home recordings and making albums and stuff since I was about 15 or so.
Cool. You want to break and play a song, man?
Yeah, man. Sorry, I'm all over the place, man. My brain's just scattered.
Oh, you're good. It's ready.
Let's see. All right. You ready?
Yeah, man.
All right. This is a song off my last record. It's called Tennessee Heartbreak.
Isn't it funny, most critics that think they know probably could draw a picture of a music note, let alone write a song about the way they feel. Too many people with piles of money in the bank who care way too much what everybody thinks, but find the time to judge the way us poor folks live. I've never been a religious man, but for what it's worth, I think you can believe in God without going to church. Let me ask you, would you bet your life on a gambling man? Sometimes I want to point my car to another state line, 'cause Tennessee broke this heart of mine. Whoa, yes indeed. Come and set me free. Just walk into the dark, let's find out who we really are. Tennessee heartbreak. Isn't it funny how everything turned out? I got a little bit old and got a little burned out, and before I knew it, the years had passed me by. Remember the way the grass fell between my toes. Used to ride my bike into the street lights glow, without a care in the world, without a care. Man, I sure miss those days. Somewhere along the line, things got hard, things changed with time, with loss of friends. Think I lost myself. So now I sing these songs about who I am, where I'm from and where I've been, but I've never been good at letting go. Will come and set me free. Let's walk into the dark, let's find out who we really are. Tennessee set me free. Come on, set me free. Let's walk into the dark. Yeah, let's walk into a vein. Let's find out who we really are. Tennessee, a heartbreak. Oh, sweet Tennessee, you're breaking my heart, babe. Well, in the funny how everything turned out, I got a little bit old and got a little worn down. Now I'm just trying to find myself.
Yes, sir. It's a good tune, brother.
Thanks, man.
I dig the songwriting, man. It's not hard for me to imagine what was going on. I mean, especially just sitting down here with you and talking, and then hearing the song. I mean, it's
Pretty straight to the point.
It's pretty straight to the point. It's straightforward, man. Dig the transparency and the honesty, man.
Thanks, man. That's about all I know how to do, is just at least be honest.
Yeah. So I was talking with you before we started. I want to talk about this for a little bit. It's like whenever you write a song and you take it to the studio and you go to record it, and then you hear it produced and you're like, it's missed. You missed it.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to kind of open that up and talk about that, like just from recording at home, and like it's kind of raw, it's uncut, it feels realer in some regards, and then you go to the studio to get that production on it, and you get it back and you're like, I like it better the other way.
Yeah, I mean, that song right there is a perfect example, and just what you just heard right now, you're hearing a guy that's going through it, been through it, and it sounds that way. It ain't pretty, it ain't perfect, you know. My voice is a little bit out of tune, a little bit raspy, and but it's honest, and the words are true, you know. And like I remember I wrote that song, and I was, you know, and it meant a lot, and it still means a lot. But I you know, I really felt like I was able to get how I felt across in some words, which is, you know, something I struggle with, because, you know, words really matter to me, you know, and I don't like wasting words, you know. You know, it's like, anyways, that's
no filler.
Yeah, you know, it's like I'm always searching for the right words to describe how I feel about something, and I felt like I did that when I wrote that song at that time, you know. And I remember I went in the studio with these cats, and they're all good friends of mine. They're all hot shot players and stuff. I went in the studio and saved up all this money, and I recorded at this, you know, this big fancy studio for the first time, and it had been the first thing I'd done as a solo artist, and I was coming off this, because everything I'd made with my last band had been with big record producers, like in LA, we were, you know, all this kind of stuff, and it sounded like that, you know what I mean, and we kind of didn't like any of it, and we had a lot of flack from recording that. And I remember I went in with those, and those would probably be better stories to explain what you're asking me about, having songs, and the reason why I'm talking about this particular song, because I was really invested in it, because it was my first effort as a solo artist, and I'd paid for everything on my own, and I went in, and I'd been through all these things, and I was really singing about something that meant a lot to me, and I went to the studio, and I had these guys with me, and it was just like this very polished version of that song. You know, it sounded like it'd be on the radio, you know, it had, and all this stuff, and I remember some people really liked it, and a lot of people didn't. They'd be like, I'd just much rather hear you play that song like I just sang it to you, or at a piano or something. Mm-hmm. And then I remember I was living with my parents at the time, and I was full blown going through it with alcohol and depression and stuff, and, you know, grown man living at home with my parents' house and super hungover, and I was crammed in this little bedroom, pretty much with all the stuff that you see in this little apartment, which is a lot of shit, was crammed into a bedroom, you know, with some, and it was like, here's my bed, and here's some instruments, and there's like a window unit, and my dog, my mom's dog Charlie, was in the other room, and I remember I'd set up a mic just like this, and I'd just play played like 10 songs that I'd been working on. And I was like, I'm just going to just, on GarageBand, I'm just going to just hit record and just, my voice is feeling good today, strong. I'm just feeling it. And I sat down and recorded all these songs just one take through. And that particular song, I remember listening back to it and I was like, but you can hear the air conditioner, you can hear my dog barking, you hear my parents talking about what's for dinner and all this kind of stuff. You hear the fan rolling around.
Yeah.
And that's the song that's on the record now, and people love it, you know. And
that cut.
Yeah. So like if you like look up my album on like Spotify or whatever, Tennessee Heartbreak, it's on the album called Somewhere Between You and Me. If you listen real close, especially in headphones, you can hear all that stuff. And that's the difference, man. Like, you know, between a polished record and a not a polished record, it's not great. It doesn't sound good. You know, if you're a dude that records, you know, for a living, and you probably listen to this thing, and it sounds like this guy recorded it one take on one mic in a room on GarageBand.
Because that's what happened.
But that's the one that connects. The other one never connected, you know.
Yeah.
And that was a fancy, you know, recording. But that wasn't with the producer. It was just necessarily, they was just in a fancy studio with a lot of fancy microphones and all that stuff, you know.
I think it's maybe good intentions. Like, they know what the industry sound is, and they try to replicate, just like you said, make it sound like radio ready.
Yeah, I've had some nightmares with producers like that, though, man. I remember, like that band I was talking about, you know, it's like the early 2000s. We were right on the brink of this, like, whole, like, kind of screamo punk rock, like, with a little bit of, like, hip-hop kind of vibe going on, and it was right when bands like Linkin Park and The Used and all that stuff were breaking, and we were doing that same kind of a thing. And I remember we went out to California, and they stuck us with these producers, and me being like just a little knucklehead kid, you couldn't tell me nothing. I was cocky. I thought you couldn't tell me anything. And they stick me in the room with this guy, and he's just basically like, "We need you to rap more. You know, we need you to do this. We need you to do that." And I'm like, "You can't tell me nothing." And like, and then we get our recording back, and it just sounds like somebody just took me or us or our band or whoever and just ran us through like this little like tiny little hole, this digital hole, and it just came out thin, and it's like with some Jinkos and a bad hairdo and like, you know, and a stupid pose in front of a railroad track. That's how it came out, you know.
Yeah.
It's like the thing about producers, man. I think it would, like, you know, but then that same band years later went on to record with another guy and a producer, and some of the dudes in the band they'll probably argue and say it was terrible, but it wasn't. He came in, he recorded us, and he actually brought some stuff to the table and brought good ideas and added things that we didn't know how to do, you know, and like with chords and strings and things like that. But my experience with producers is overall has not been great. It's basically like a producer comes in and like just takes your songs and just puts his skin over it and then presents that. It's like, you know, it's just his version of you know.
That's that artist I was telling you about earlier, and it's happened 2 or 3 times. Seen them live, you know, first time hearing this album, seeing it like on the tours, they stop by or whatever, or however big the artist is, maybe they're just doing a showcase in the hometown, you know. And then I get the record, and I go home and play it, and there's damn horns, and you know, and I was like, call them, like, what the fuck just happened, man?
Right. Yeah, it's hard, man. It's like kind of like you give somebody some power, and then it's like they feel like they just gotta have an opinion on it. It's like, all right, well, this dude hired me to like, you know, have an opinion, so I just gotta like, I feel like I just gotta say something. I can't just like take it how it is, you know. Yeah. And it's always that way, dude. Always, and it's like, and most of the time these fucking producers come in, and then it's like, and you, I don't want to say too much, man, but like, yeah, you know, you ask them like let me, like, hey man, play me a song that you wrote.
Yeah,
let me hear you.
It's kind of like the first line in the song.
Yeah, dude,
that you just played. You know, with Tennessee Heartbreak.
I remember, man, like, shit. I don't know. I went and recorded this record with this hotshot producer guy, And he talked all this shit about how great he was, and talked, and just came down on us and blah blah blah. And then he's trying to tell me how to play the drums and tell them how to play this and do that, and then he'd sit down behind the drums, and it's like the guy, it's like he just learned how to play the drums, but he's sitting there trying to tell me how to play the drums, or he's like trying to tell, so and so how to sing a song or play the guitar. And then you hear what he actually does. I don't know, man. I just don't respect it. I can't respect it. I respect a man. It's like, show me, man.
Yeah.
Stand on the fucking hill and show me what you got.
Yeah. I like, but there is some good things to say. Like there's, like John Paul White with his studio up in like the Muscle Shoals area. Same with Isbell. He took in St. Paul and the Broken Bones and let them do the album the way they wanted to do the album.
Right.
That's rare, but it does happen. Jack White with Margot Price.
Sure, yeah.
Nashville didn't want her. Wasn't conservative. Didn't like the songs. Jack White took her in, did it the way she needed to do it.
Yeah, he heard what he heard when
Yeah.
he saw her, and he basically is just like, let me capture who.
Yeah.
It's like trying to take a picture of a beautiful woman. Like, I just wanted to take a picture
Yeah.
of the way you look sitting in that rocking chair, not like, hey babe, you put on this dress
Yeah.
and put your hair up this way. I want the picture of you just like that.
Yeah.
You know.
And so I like it when that happens, but it's so rare.
Yeah, man.
But I'm just asking, like, just for any singer-songwriter out there listening, or a band coming up, and like they're at this point, and these are things to think about.
It's true, man. I just think, that's where I'm at. Like, this is the first chance that this will be the first time I've made a proper record as a solo artist. What I'm doing right now, and I'm at that point. And I had an option to like, who do you want to record this record? Do you want it to be this guy or this guy, or And there's this guy named Jeff Powell, and he is the guy we're talking about. I've recorded with him multiple times over the years with other bands, doing playing drums and stuff, and just seeing how he works. And I love the way he works, because he is that guy. All he wants to do is just capture. First of all, it's like he's probably not going to work with you unless he believes in you. So he really is like wants to just capture what you're trying to get across, and the ideas that when I worked that he brought were great ideas. He's and I respect him, and it's like he's not trying to change anything. He's like really trying to just help you just bring it in, and make it work and sound good. So they're definitely out there. I didn't mean to come off like I'm just bashing producers, but I've had the worst experience with all those motherfuckers. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so when you do come across the guys like you're talking about, it's great. 'Cause there's nothing better than to have someone like that who's running the ship, and you can just sit there behind the glass and you can just be yourself and play. You don't have to worry about somebody trying to change who you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I don't think people should be scared of working with producers. Sometimes people get the whole producer thing. People bash it and you get a bad rap. I think it's just finding
Finding the right guy.
Yeah, it's like falling in love, man. You just gotta find the one girl that loves you for who you are, man.
That's it. Let's move on with your story. And so we're writing songs. We're back at home. And where did that transition start? Where's the story go from here?
Like coming off a tour with like Star and Micey and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, man, I was always and have been consistently, was always trying I've always written songs. That's the only thing I've ever known how to do. The only thing I ever felt like I was good at, whether I was good at it or not. But I felt like it was something that made me happy, and it gave me power, because I always kind of felt misunderstood, and I've always dealt with depression, and the thing about it is what's weird about me and those feelings is because I had a good life, man. I had 2 great parents, and I had a great childhood with friends, and I did get to do all these things like play music at an early age, but I always felt sad and unhappy and didn't know why and misunderstood, and music gave me that, because I was good at it, and it made me feel different in a good way, because I always felt different, but this made me feel like it was okay to be different, and I don't know, man, and I fell in love with music in a big way, and And somewhere along the lines, I'm sure you probably, you talked to a lot of people or anyone really, but like, and like that song, but somewhere along the way, I got attached to the wrong things about it. I started to lose direction of who I was and who I wanted to be, and just being a kid growing up in life and growing up in front of people, because like, I started to become our bands became popular pretty early, and so we were going through all our awkward phases in front of this town, and so it's hard to go through all your phases and changes, and while you're growing up in front of people, because people judge you, and when you're young, all that stuff hurts and it matters, and so along the way, music started to not make me happy anymore. I was going through the motions, and I discovered alcohol and all those things, and I was dealing with all these feelings of depression and sadness with alcohol, and it was just getting worse and worse, and I started to become very disconnected from music, even though that's all I've done for the last 20-something years. Every day I've been on stage or playing or performing and or recording and stuff since I was a kid, and there was never a pause. I never stopped. I never took a break from it, but I took a break from it in my head. I was just going through the motions, and that's what that happened. But I had been writing songs the whole time, but the whole time I felt like I was just constantly being ignored, or doors were shutting on in my face, or people were always like, you're good enough, but you're not. It was like you're a lemon, like you're good, but you're not good enough. Keep trying. I just never felt good enough, and I kind of still struggling. I mean, it never stopped.
Yeah.
And then just kind of, I kind of took a back seat to my music and my songs, because I made those like my last record. I had some bigger record labels that were interested in me, and it was kind of like that last breath, because like all the bands that I'd been in before had failed, and I thought it was over. And then I went solo, and then all of a sudden I had this opportunity where some big labels were interested in me, and I started making demos for them, and the same thing, they passed on me, and eventually I was like, well, fuck it, I'll split it out myself, and that's what my last record was. Yeah. It's just some fancy demos that were for some asshole that thought I wasn't good enough, which is bullshit. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then I kind of just pretty much for the last 10 years have kind of taken a back seat to myself. Star and Micey became much more popular, and we started touring we were on tour forever, all the time, and and I was doing my music on the side, and I'd come home, and I swore I'd never be that guy in the corner at a bar playing the 3-hour sets every night, and that's what I became, and still am, and it's like, it's a hard pill to swallow, but you got to survive, and like I'm not bashing it, because I'm a working class dude, and I respect the guy that gets out and plays, and works, and I'm not scared to put myself out there, and so I've been. I know it's a long-winded version of it, but the whole time I've been writing songs and working at it, and as much as I bitch about it and talk about how much it hurts me, but I'll always sit down at the piano, and I'll always sit down at the guitar, and I'm always singing, because that's always been my way of
expression. Yeah,
but not until really the last year or so I actually was like, man, put your boots back on and just try again. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of what happened, because I kind of thought, like, maybe if I got sober and all that stuff, that would I'd have that story that a lot of these guys had, that all of a sudden I just spill out this like amazing record, but it didn't happen for me that way. It's just it's starting to seep out of me
a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool, man. I was going to talk to you a little bit about your songwriting process. Does it start, or I guess it could be different with each song, does it start on the piano or guitar, or does it start with a line? Or?
It usually, man, it kind of depends, I mean, like, the thing, like, everything's kind of, like, this little apartment, like, this is probably the most singing I've ever done in this apartment. I'm real, I feel...
private.
Yeah, so I don't, like, I have this little music room, I don't use it. And my piano's at my parents' house, I don't go over there because it's hard for me, because, it's like, my dad's sitting there, and my mom's dog and my mom's ashes and my mom's shoes on the floor, so it's hard for me to go over there. So all I do is cry. It's like that's another thing too, man. It's like my songwriting. It's like writing songs is hard for me, man. When I pick up a guitar and I start talking about how I really feel, all I do is cry. You know, I can't get past if I'm being honest about it. You know. So I don't sit down. I'm not one of those dudes, and I think it's great that people can do this. I don't just sit down and go, all right, I'm going to write a song today. Here's some chords and blah, blah, blah. It just starts from a feeling, man, and I'm always going through something like that. But, you know, in my phone, I got a whole, and also, it comes from, like, titles. I get a lot of titles or a lot of, like, one-liners and things like that, but... Sorry, man. I don't know if I'm answering your question the right way.
No, you are. Yeah, you're doing it. It starts with a line.
Yeah, it starts with a line, or you know, or just. But that's kind of where it comes from. Or I'll be like, I want to write a song about streetlights, man, or this or that, or some chords, and then I'll sit down at the piano and.
Flesh it out.
Yeah, I guess I guess each song is different, man. To be honest with you, that's the short.
It's kind of a hard question.
It is a hard question
because each one is different. You always need to take it like one by one.
Yeah, because if I sit down at the piano and I just start playing some chords, it'll spark or make me think about a line or a title.
So I've been singing and playing for 15 years and been writing songs for 12, and each one is so different.
Right, you know.
And the reason why I like them and why I think they suck and why some people will never hear them, you know, it's always that it goes back to the honesty and transparency. And when I was 18, man, I would write extremely eclectic and like cryptic,
right,
and like secret meanings and try to just be real clever. He's a clever teenager. Look at the way he works.
Right.
It's like everybody's gonna know me for my wit. And then, like, gotten older and going back and listening to that, I was like, you dumbass. You know, but it was just part of it.
Right, you got to go through it, man, you know.
Yeah.
I definitely know that feeling.
Well, man, just to start walking this thing out the door with a new album, when will that be available? And what are some ways for people to find you and your music?
Well, I mean, you can find me pretty much just search Jeremy Stanfill, and you can find me on all the social media stuff and Spotify's and iTunes and Facebooks and Instagrams. As far as the record goes, hopefully, I'm pretty sure the record will be out at the beginning of the year. Right. I'm in the process of writing it right now. I got a handful of songs that I think I'm not too embarrassed about, and then. And I'm gonna start trying to just knock them out, and just, I really want to make a record that's, like I said, the last couple of years have been pretty hard for me, and so a lot of this stuff is, I'm always very honest with my music, but there's a lot of stuff that's gonna be hard to talk about, and so I really want to make a record that's true to what I've been through and all that stuff. So, like I said, hopefully it'll be out. It'll be out on Blue Barrel Records. Hopefully at the beginning of the year.
Great. When you're playing out and playing around, do you experiment with some of the song ideas in that 3-hour set you're pounding?
Every night, man. That's how I flesh out most of my songs, man. It's like I've never been scared of trying. Like, a lot of people, they'll be like, I'm not gonna show you what I got till it's done. I get on stage every night, man, with like 3 chords and like 2 lines, and I'm most of the time making stuff up, and a lot of times like you just kind of seeing what sticks and what works, and I can tell pretty much right off the bat, like if I'm like saying a line or something that like people notice, and what works, because I think, man, that's the whole playing live thing in general with bands. Like I was saying earlier, how all I ever did was practice. When you're in a practice place and you're in your little domain and you got it worked out, it's perfect every time. But getting on stage and the ghost of rock and roll is following you around and it never goes how it's planned. That's the best way to work it all out, always.
Well, cool, man. Well, what are some great spots to just catch you at for those local around Memphis area, or maybe if you're getting out of Memphis a little bit to catch you?
Well, right now I'm not really doing much touring, but in town, I got like a little residency down here at this bar called Celtic Crossing in Midtown that I play every Thursday at 7. And that's about it, man. And then just here and there, everywhere in between. You know.
I got you. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you, buddy.
You want to walk us out with another song?
Yeah, let's see what we got here. All right, let's see. You ready?
Yeah, man.
Invisible Man.
I got change in my pocket, but I'm so broken. Drive around this old town, still dreaming, still hoping. Feel like I'm a stranger, feel like I'm a ghost, the invisible man. Well, I sit at the bar and I think, staring at the bottle, staring back at me. Well, I join your conversation, but I don't speak that language anymore. Bartender said, hey man, don't hang your head down anymore. No use in crying. Why bottle your troubles away and start trying to move on? So I move along. Well, growing up's been hard to do, making all these decisions, well, they're hard to choose. Facing myself in the mirror with so much to prove. Growing up's hard to do. Everyone has found a way, and I'm still stuck somewhere in between. The only thing that just won't leave is my bad reputation. Well, hey man, don't hang your head down anymore. There's no use in crying. Why bottle your troubles away and start trying to move on? So I move along. Change is hard for me to do, so I sing it out to you. I feel that changing, so change is what I'm gonna do. All the change in my pocket, I'm still broke. Still drive around this old town, still dreaming, still hoping. But I'm gonna keep on trying, I'm gonna keep on roaming. The invisible man.
Good tune, man.
Thanks, brother.
Dig it. Well, that's gonna do it. We're out of here.
All right, man.
Cheers.